Hi, my name is Angie Chamberlain, and today I'll be showing you an Alexa-based COVID-19 symptom assessment tool that was constructed for George Mason University and Vibrant. The goal of this tool is to basically provide a symptom assessment that can run in the background of one's normal activities. That way, the user doesn't need to log on to a specific website, use a specific device, or stop whatever they're doing in order to go ahead and access the survey. They can simply pull this up on most smart devices and interact with it hands-free in order to go ahead and take the quick survey that won't take very long at all, as we'll see in a little bit, and move about their day. They can do this while they're getting ready for work, while they're cooking breakfast, essentially while they're doing any other task, and the need for this will pop into their head and they can go ahead and do it quickly, not paying too much attention or too much effort into doing it, and move on. It's a conversational tool that's meant to enable Alexa to ask the user about the symptoms and to calculate a risk score based off of that, and to do so very quickly. So we're going to see that we're using some conversational elements to make it feel like the user is having a unique conversation, unique interaction with this survey, rather than just going through some formulaic questions. And since Alexa is pretty much everywhere, as we've stated, this survey can be taken on the go. So it can be used on a smart device, such as a smartphone. We also see that Alexa is integrated into the newer car systems, and some cars are linked by Bluetooth to the smartphone, so this can be done while parked in the parking lot of work, or the grocery store, or anywhere that the user might want to, without having to actually do it where they're in a specific location, such as their home or office. So here we see a survey flowchart that shows the basic trajectories through the survey. These paths are determined by user input, so based on the response to each prompt, the user will be guided through a different part of the survey that's relevant to their response. The paths are adjustable and flexible and can be changed later on if we want to add questions, change the calculations that are occurring, or allow different responses, or to gather even more information, or if we want to leave some parts as optional or temporary disabled. We're using subflows that allow for isolated reproducible protocols so that we can replicate them elsewhere in the survey, or again, if we want to go ahead and silence them temporarily, depending on how we're using the survey at any given time. So it's a pretty flexible way of taking this information, and can be changed as conditions or needs change. And we can see through this flowchart that essentially, as we invoke the Alexa task, we'll be greeted with instructions and asked for an initial symptom. Now, there's 3 different ways that the users can respond. They'll either state that they're not having symptoms, they can give us a targeted symptom that is part of our calculations, or they can give us another symptom altogether. If they're reporting no symptoms, Alexa will go ahead and verify that that is indeed what they mean, and go ahead and let them know that since they're not reporting any symptoms, their symptom-based risk of COVID-19 is pretty low, and we'll wish them a great day. If the user in that step changes their mind and says, well, actually, no, I do have symptoms I want to report, or if Alexa misunderstood, which we all know happens from time to time, we're not going to go ahead and kick the user out of the survey. We're actually going to say, hey, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and try this again. And so we are constructing a way for the user to move through the survey quickly, even if their responses aren't well understood at each step. And that way, the survey will kind of keep going and move through the questions, even if we're not quite getting an accurate response. Now, we can ask for a symptom and get a recognized symptom, which is one of our target symptoms that we are using in our calculation. Now, there's going to be a variety of ways that the user can report these symptoms, as each target symptom is going to accept a a number of different phrases and utterances in order to recognize that. So the user who has a cough might say, well, I have a cough, or they might say that they are coughing. And so that flexibility allows the user to use the terms that come more naturally to them, and it also gives us a little bit more accuracy in capturing those phrases. Now, the user might give us an unrecognized symptom, or they might report something in a way that Alexa doesn't quite understand. In this case, we're going to go ahead and record the symptom as is, but we're not going to use it in our calculations. This may be something that either is not in our calculations, or it's an irrelevant symptom, such as my hand hurts. And so we're going to go ahead and record it so that we can look at this data later on and see what people are reporting, and also look for opportunities to improve the survey. And so maybe we're seeing a version of a recognized symptoms that we didn't quite think of in the first place, and we want to go ahead and add it as recognized. Once the initial symptom is reported, we're going to go ahead and ask the user if they have any additional symptoms. So we're going to take these symptoms one by one in order to provide a more efficient way through the survey for each user. And we'll see a little bit later on that we're actually going to use a few conversational tools here in order to make that loop a little less repetitive sounding to the user. This way, if the user only has one symptom, they're not spending their time declining additional symptoms or being asked additional times about symptoms that they don't have. But if the user has many symptoms to report, they can go ahead and report as many as they'd like, or feel the need to. But once they're done reporting symptoms, Alexa's going to go ahead and record the symptoms and calculate the score and give the associated results with that score. So here we see the back end of the voice flow tool that helps us design and prototype the Alexa skill. And basically we see that it looks like the basic flow chart with a few added things in there, but we see that we've used also a few subflows in order to help us keep the main flow a little less congested. Now, the nice part about this setup is that it allows us to create changes as we go without having to restart the whole process. And so we can add things in, we can take things out, we can temporarily disable things or rearrange things in one part of the survey without affecting the rest of the survey, which is really helpful, especially in design. This also means that we'll be able to make adjustments to the survey as we get more user data, or as we decide to integrate different tools or different questions or different data. So here we're going to take a look at a sample user from our data and see how long it would take them to complete the survey, as well as what their experience might be like when they're reporting their symptoms. Computer, open GMU COVID Symptom Survey.
Hello. Thank you for taking our COVID-19 symptoms survey. I'll be asking you questions about your symptoms and will calculate your COVID-19 probability. Let's start by assessing your symptoms one at a time. What's your first symptom today?
I have a fever.
Thank you. I've noted that symptom. Do you have another symptom to add?
Yes.
What's your next symptom?
I have pink eye.
Thanks. I'll take that symptom into account. Do you have another symptom to add?
Yes.
What's your next symptom?
I have nausea.
Noted. I'll add that to my calculation. Do you have another symptom to add?
Nope.
Great. Please give me a moment to record your symptoms and calculate your score. Thank you. Based on your reported symptoms, you have a high risk of COVID-19. You should contact a medical professional immediately.
So as you can see, that took approximately 75 seconds. So it doesn't take too long to go ahead and get through these symptoms. And we're going to take a look at what it looks like in different scenarios as well. but in each case, it doesn't take very long to get through this survey. I've also tried this process out with a couple more symptoms to see how that would play out and how much extra time we're investing when we're adding other. And with 2 extra symptoms, we're up to 80 seconds. And so, as you see, even if it's complicated and there's a lot of symptoms to go through, or even if the user is having a hard time reporting their symptoms or listing off some stuff that doesn't really get integrated, it's not really going to spend all of that much time. So we're going to see what this trajectory looks like when we're sidestepping the symptoms altogether. Computer, open GMU COVID Symptom Survey.
Hello. Thank you for taking our COVID-19 symptom survey. I'll be asking you questions about your symptoms and will calculate your COVID-19 probability. Let's start by assessing your symptoms one at a time. What's your first symptom today?
I don't have any.
I understand you are not experiencing any symptoms today. Is that correct?
Yep.
That's great. I'm happy to hear that. Without any symptoms to report, your risk of COVID-19 based on symptoms is low. Have a great day.
So that's about it. 30 seconds and we're through. And as we've mentioned before, we want this to feel like more of a conversation. And one of the places in the survey that might feel a little repetitive as you go through a couple different times is where we're reporting and collecting symptoms. That particular part of the survey forms a loop, and we don't want it to feel like a loop to the user. And so we can add in a few variants to the way that Alexa is responding to the user so that it can break up the monotony there. That way it'll feel a little bit more natural to the user and will feel a little less tedious and repetitive. So once we've received all the symptoms from the user, this tool completes 4 basic tasks. We calculate the likelihood ratio based on their symptoms, we compare the results, we record the symptom input, and we assess the risk level based on that likelihood ratio. And on the back end, we see that we are not recording identifiable information, but we do record the associated likelihood ratios for each input. And so the likelihood ratio is going to be associated with a negative symptom unless we're actually reporting that symptom in each line. So we can actually go back to this data and see what users have been reporting, as well as what these trajectories have been looking like. And we do have another cell that's going to put in some miscellaneous symptoms if they're being reported. So we can use that information either to improve the utterances that we're accepting for some of our target symptoms, or seeing if people are reporting similar symptoms throughout different surveys. And so where do we go from here? With this tool, we can improve it as users interact with it and kind of learn how people are using it and where we can either add on or cut some time off, as well as broadening the accepted input that we're actually taking into account. We can also add some follow-up questions that might help us be more specific about certain symptoms. So we might be asking about how long their symptom has been present, or if we want to distinguish between a dry cough or a productive cough, we might be able to go ahead and build that in if it makes sense too. We can also translate this to other platforms, including Google Assistant and IVR, and we could actually use this same format for other healthcare system assessments if need be. This version of the survey doesn't collect identifying information, but we can add that functionality if we wanted to. And we can also link this to other apps that can trigger specific events. So if we want to email specific information to the user at the end of the survey, we can go ahead and link up to an app such as Zapier in order to go ahead and send that out. We can retrieve information, and so we can say if someone has a cough and we actually want Alexa to give them specific information on that, we can go ahead and do that. So there's definitely more functionality that can be built in if desired. And so this was built using the Voice Flow platform, which works mainly with Alexa and Google Assistant and gives us the ability to go ahead and publish straight out through this program. But we can also use this to publish or to at least design and prototype for different assistants, IVR, a chatbot, and a mobile app. And it'll take a little bit more work to publish into that platform, but it certainly is integratable. And so the virtual assistant platform can and should automate tasks to provide a hands-free or handheld experience that can inform and perform tasks. And while we're using this survey currently, just in order to make an assessment and give a sort of result based on reported data, we can actually use it to do many more things, again, such as sending out an email or retrieving specific information or triggering specific tasks. So in the end, we're going to be able to have users ask Alexa about their COVID symptoms or potential COVID symptoms and see if they might be COVID related based on the data in the study that Dr. Lemmy's team has been working on. These likelihood ratios are calculated based on that data and given to the user in a way that's easy to understand, basically in 4 basic categories of low, average, elevated, or high risk.